Hello, and welcome to our first video on Learning Game C, Wider Implications of Digital Systems. Today we're going to be looking at shared data. During this video, we're going to have three main learning objectives. The first one is for us to be able to explain how data is shared, and that includes location-based data, transactional data, the use of cookies, and how data is exchanged between services. We're then going to look at the benefits and drawbacks of using shared data. And finally, we'll conclude by being able to understand the responsible use of data, where we look at the legal considerations, how people's privacy is important, and how we can use data ethically. When we talk about the term data, this is information that is stored on people. This information has been processed to allow categories to be identified. If we take a look at social networks, although they are free for us to use, they use a lot of advertisements to make income so the social media site can operate. You may have noticed on your timeline that you are targeted these adverts related to your hobbies, your interests, or your location. Companies use personal data to identify different segments of their customers. They encourage people to enter data about themselves through interactive polls or quizzes, where you may enter in your favourite colour or your favourite football team. This allows them to process all the responses to identify categories or groups of people who have similar interests. When this data is then collected, they can advertise accordingly to that small group, which will save them money as they are not having to advertise to people who will not be interested in the adverts. Another method of collecting data is by using location-based data. This is where your GPS signal gives information to the companies or the apps locating where you are so they can use that information for further use. Some examples of organizations that use location-based data are taxi services such as Uber. They can ensure then that the closest taxi goes to the customer. You may also use location-based data in your satellite navigation systems. This will allow you to plan a route from A to B and consider factors such as traffic or shortest distance to save petrol money. You may have also seen in recent times the craze of using location-based data in app games such as Pokemon Go. This allows you to catch Pokemon in certain areas of the map based on where you are standing. Another form of collecting data about your users is by using cookies. We'll come on to that shortly. In the example shown on the screen, Best All-Inclusive Holidays is a website which sells holidays. As you can see, they are making some money by allowing other companies to advertise on their site. How do you think the website knows which adverts to show the user of that web page at that time? Have a think and we'll go through the answers shortly. Hopefully you've spotted the image ads and also the text ad to buy an iPad Pro. These adverts are funded by other companies, as if a user clicks this link, they can then purchase a product from their site to generate income for their company. When you use a search engine such as Google, it will use a cookie on your computer, which is a small text file, to store what you have searched for previously. This information will then be displayed on the web pages. For example, if I looked at a One Direction album on Amazon, if I then went to a different web page, you would not be surprised to know that you see One Direction albums then advertised to you still. This is using cookies. We're going to look at that now. To confirm, a cookie is a small text file that is downloaded onto a user's computer when they visit a website. You may have seen the image on the slide before, where you have to click the Accept Cookies to allow to move on to the website and use it. There are two types of cookies which we're going to look at in further detail. These are a session cookie and a persistent cookie. Firstly, let's look at session cookies. A session cookie exists only while someone is visiting a site. and it is removed when you leave that site. It stores data that is generated as a visitor moves from one page to another. For example, if you place an item in a shopping basket, that data is then stored in the cookie, and it will continue to be in the shopping basket while you are completing your rest of your web searches until you are ready to check out. If you leave that site and then come back, the session cookie will have gone, and therefore the product will no longer be in the shopping basket. Whereas persistent cookies remain on a user's computer even after you have left the site and finished browsing. This means you don't have to re-enter any data or preferences when you are actually going back to a site you've previously visited. This makes it very convenient for the user. An example could be if you log into your Amazon account. Once you have left the Amazon web page, you may then come back again in a few hours' time, and you will still be signed into your Amazon account because your data has been stored in persistent cookies. Another method of recording data is by using transactional data. This is data that is generated when you make a transaction, for example, a sale of a product, or ordering some tickets for an event or a flight. As you can see in the image of the flight boarding pass, there is many pieces of data that could be recorded, such as the passenger's name, where they are going from and their destination to, the date and time that their flight will take place, and other key information such as the flight and seat numbers. There may also be the payment details recorded on the back of the ticket. All these pieces of data can be used to identify important information about this transaction. We're going to look at another example in the next slide. In this example, we're going to look at a supermarket receipt for Tesco. As you can see, from this transaction of purchasing your products to payment, you can see there's many pieces of data that would be recorded, such as the name and the location of the supermarket, whether that was one in Doncaster, or in Rotherham, or in Sheffield. The ID of the checkout that they are using. This piece of data can then tell the manager if there's been any complaints made in the future. The date and time of the purchase, again, to make sure that customers know when the purchase was made, as you could take a receipt into a shop which is expired by 2 weeks and claim that you've purchased that product just there and then. You'll have each item's name and price and quantity shown on the receipt. All these pieces of data will show what you've bought and how many and how much price you paid. And there's other key pieces of data such as your payment details and any loyalty card numbers of bonus points that have been made to your account. All these pieces of data are recorded as part of that one transaction so they can be used by companies to analyze in the future. Many people use modern technology to shop online rather than going to physical stores. When you're shopping online, you will usually enter in key pieces of data such as the name and quantity of products you want to purchase, your card details, and the postal address for the products to go sent to. These pieces of data will be shared with other companies. Have a think which other companies would use or need this data from your online shopping transaction. Your payment details for this online shop will be shared with your bank or card issuer. This will allow the shop to check that you have the funds in the bank to pay for the goods. Also, the postal address that you have written down will be shared with the shipping company. This will allow the courier to deliver your product to the correct house that you've purchased. By sharing this data amongst the different organizations, they can ensure that the transaction is completed and everybody is acting accordingly. When people and organizations share data, there are many benefits and drawbacks. Some of the benefits of having shared data are that communication services such as email can easily be used and therefore require little training or cost. There is also an ability for multiple people to work on the same documents. For example, if I shared a worksheet on Google Classrooms, many people can access it at the same time and complete their work. Companies, such as online shopping companies such as Amazon, can automate tasks, which means the tasks are done automatically, such as sending paperwork to customers. For example, when you place an order, you will automatically receive an email to confirm that order. This will then also be sent to the courier so they can deliver your product. The drawbacks of using shared data can be significant. If you share data with someone or a company that is untrustworthy, you may lose control of the data, and therefore confidential data may be seen by unauthorized users and can lead to fraud. You also need to make sure that you adhere to any laws, such as the Data Protection Act. If you are allowing data to be shared and this goes out of control, you may then be prosecuted, which can lead to large fines or time in prison. We'll be looking at laws in future videos. This brings us on to ethical use of data. When information is being displayed about products, it needs to be very clear. There's been many cases where customers have been misled from the information that has been labelled. A key example that I always think about is when you go onto eBay and you can see people selling game consoles. There's been many cases where people have purchased what they believed was a games console. However, the item that has arrived has only been the box. Therefore, this misleading information has not been very clear and therefore is not an ethical use of data. Also, people's privacy needs to be considered. When we share data, you need to consider whether the information is private and confidential and who it is being shared with and if they should have any kind of knowledge of the information. This was seen in the Cambridge Analytica by Facebook. People's information was shared without their consent, and this caused large problems. We're going to end this video by taking a look at the legal considerations of using data. These are the laws that protect data and people. The main law is called the Data Protection Act. This was recently updated to the GDPR. This ensures that any data stored is following certain principles and people have certain access rights. We will be looking at the Data Protection Act alongside other laws in future videos for this topic. If companies don't follow the Data Protection Act, they can face a fine of a large value. And also, if data is lost or stolen from a cyber attack, then the company must now inform customers so they can be aware and check their system themselves. This is why you see in the press and on the news when companies or banks lose key data, so then people can check to make sure there's no fraud that is taking place on their accounts.